Iam Michael Franzese, a former maid boss in the Columbo Crime family starting in the early 80s. Ask me anything. I'll begin answering questions at 2 p.m. Eastern. Hi Redditors, I'm Michael Franzese. I'm here to answer your questions. I am the son of one of the most feared Mafia bosses to ever walk the streets of NY. He was an enforcer known to be cold-blooded and extremely deadly. I followed in my dad's footsteps and took on the mob life. As a maid member, I made money for the mob. Tons of money. A quote about me from Life magazine. From the time he took a blood oath that bound him body and sold to New York's Columbo Crime family, Franzese became a force to be reckoned with in organized crime. Named one of the biggest money makers in the mob since Al Capone by Vanity Fair, he quickly crept into the upper echelon of Mafia authority in this country. At age 35, he was the youngest mobster listed on Fortune magazine's survey of the 50 most powerful and wealthy Mafia bosses in America. Franzese hit the list at number 18, only 5 spots behind the infamous John Gotti. At the height of his operation, federal authorities claim Franzese generated close to $1 billion a year in a gas tax scheme he masterminded. Then defying common sense and the covenant that bound him to the Colombo family, Michael did the unthinkable. He quit the mob. There's an old saying that the only way to leave the Mafia is in a coffin. Michael Franzese was willing to take that risk. He will not betray his former crime associates and then disappear into the witness protection program. If he holds to what he has promised, it will mark the first time that a high-ranking member of the Mafia will publicly walk away from his past and live. That was then. A young Christian woman I met on the set of a movie changed my life and caused a transformation in me that only God could have engineered. My story is currently featured on 3 cable networks: Discovery, the History Channel, and National Geographic Network, and a movie about my life will be released in theaters in the fall. A documentary I am featured entitled Impact delivers a strong message to at-risk youth and has won Best Documentary Awards in 2013 at 2 major film festivals. I know the mob life as well or better than most. I am also a person of strong faith. I'm ready to answer all your questions. Ask me anything you like. No bounds, no limits. I have been asked everything under the Sunday. If I choose not to answer, I know how to take the fifth. I've done that many times in my former mob life, but I assure you I won't this time. So join me today and fire away. What was it like walking away from the Mafia? Was it accepted, or were you threatened or hounded in any way? Also, what were the actual logistics of your gas tax scam? How were neither the IRS or any federal agency not able to successfully audit you? I struggled mightily for years after walking away. My father disowned me. The family put a hit on me. The feds tried to make me a witness. Lots of pressure. Very tough. And very tough for me personally. Even though I didn't hurt anyone, I felt like I betrayed my oath, and it really troubled me. Only God and time were able to fix that. Gas tax scheme was complicated, but we were way ahead of the authorities. They could not figure out what we were doing. If my partner didn't turn snitch, they would never figure out the scam. Any fears about your safety today? I can't go back to Brooklyn to live, or in NY in general. Wouldn't last. But I don't live in fear. I am a person of strong faith now. God has had my back. Remember, I am the only made man, a cop or regime, that I know of who has walked away from the life, publicly, not entered a witness protection program and lived. It's a God thing, my friend, not coincidence. Any stories of interaction with other organized crime families, such as Russian mob, Yakuza, outlaw bike clubs, Mexican prison gangs, etc.? A million. Spent 20 years in the life. Organized the Russian mob from Brighton Beach in the gas business. Best partners I ever had. I taught them how to defraud the government out of hundreds of millions of dollars of tax money back then. They now are deep into Medicare fraud, setting up fraudulent medical clinics all over the country. Would take hours to tell you all the stories. Take care. Does the Mafia still have a big presence in the US? Are they just better at hiding it now? Yes, not nearly as big as when I was active in the 70s, early 90s, but still exists. Don't count it out. Very resourceful. What is the process of becoming a made man like? Very intense, very solemn, very serious. I took an oath with a picture of a saint burning in my hands. My thumb was cut with a knife and blood dropped on the floor. The oath is never to violate the brotherhood of La Cosa Nostra. What is the scariest situation you have been in? Walked into a room one night and thought I was going to get killed. I was called in by my boss over money I generated in the gas business. That's how it goes. You walk in, and never walk out when you are in real trouble. I was in the right, proved it, and here I am. But, brother, my heart was pounding, knees weak. Still don't know why I went. I guess just a product of my life back then. I see this question asked all the time, but never to a legitimate former mafia boss. How accurate are most mob movies, television shows? If you could recommend one to watch for authenticity, which would it be? Most authentic, Goodfellas and Donnie Brasco. They mention my name in Goodfellas. The bar scene. I knew those guys very well. My era saved Henry Hill's life 2x. I knew Paul Vario and Jimmy Burke well. Also, and Left Guns Ruggiero was a good friend. Those two are the most accurate depiction of that part of the life. How can I tell if the steakhouse across the street from me is a mob joint? Are there any telltale signs? It supposedly was a hot spot in the 80s and is still rumored to be. Easy. Who hangs out there? Mob guys like to eat where they are comfortable with ownership and the clientele. And of course, the food has to be good. Where Hoffa at? They will never find Hoffa's body. Trust me on that one. What is the worst thing you have done? Seen when in the mob? Thanks for doing this. Awesome. Unfortunately, violence is a part of the life. If you are a made guy, you're going to see it. No escape. I have seen my share. It's ugly. How old were you when you first realized something was different about your family, and what made you realize it? Very young. My dad was super high profile, like the John Gotti of his day. Law enforcement always after him meant sitting outside my house. Many incidents with them. Didn't like them very much when I was a kid. Got into fights in school when kids made remarks. But I loved my dad. Made me tougher. Did you, or other maid members, get an actual salary? Or did you just have access to any money you needed? If you did get salary, was it based on what you brought in? And how much was your salary? Do you have a relationship with your father? How thin can you cut your garlic? Ha! No salary you earned for yourself unless you were the boss. Most Guzzi were not good earners. Trust me. Yes, he's 96 years old and still in prison. Very thin. We mob guys are experts at cutting garlic. We all know movies like The Godfather and shows like Boardwalk Empire are a romanticized version of the golden age of the Mafia. The Sopranos, on the other hand, has been praised as being a very authentic mob show. My question, how accurately did The Sopranos portray the inner workings of the mob? The best thing about The Sopranos was how he interacted with his family. Mob guys also had family issues. The business stuff was not realistic, made them look incompetent. Some guys were, but others were pretty darn smart. Any funny mafia stories? What would be the lighter side of organized crime? A million of them. Mob guys can be hilarious. Read my book. I'll make you an offer you can't refuse. Lots of stories in that one, like in all of my books. If you had it all to do over again, would you make the same choices? Was the lifestyle worth all the trouble you went through? Life on the street and in the mob is a dead end. Prison or death is the way it will end today. I would not go into that life, knowing what I know now. I try my best to drum this into the head of our young people. Gangbangers. Not worth it for me or for anyone in the life. Trust me. What were the most popular methods of intimidation or extortion? Just following through with what you say you are going to do. If you say I'll beat you with a bat if you don't perform, pay, you know they will. It's knowing you back up what you say that scares people. How full of bodies is the Meadowlands marshes in New Jersey? I just can't help but think it's loaded. Not loaded. That's a myth. How would crime families view the more modern organized street gangs? It means to an end as partners or just petty criminals not to be trusted. Petty criminals. No respect for human life. We chase them from our neighborhoods if they would even dare to enter. Can you describe the most brutal, violent thing you ever witnessed while in the mob? The most brutal act you heard committed? The Demio crew chopped up bodies and buried the parts in cement drums. Witness death. It's not pretty. Let's leave it at that. What is the most unrealistic part about the mafias portrayed in television and movies? Really depends on the movie you're talking about. Goodfellas, Donnie Brasco. Realistic. The Sopranos? If a mob boss was ever visiting a psychiatrist, he would be in the trunk of a car by the end of the week, along with the psychiatrist, but the family interaction was fairly legit. What timing? I just watched the program about the 10 Commandments of the Mafia, and now here you are. Where did you get the idea for the gas station scheme? And since it was getting so big, Did you have any sort of an exit strategy in case the authorities got too close? Or would you just keep running the scam until you went down with the ship? Who was the scariest person you ever encountered and what made him particularly frightening? Gas tax scheme was 1 in a million. So much money. Better than drugs and a lot less ugly. A guy in the bees came to me when some other mob guys tried to shake him down and move in on his business. I chased the guys away and the two of us devised this scheme to defraud the government out of the tax money on every gallon of gas. At its height, we sold 500 million gallons of gas a month and kept 20-30 cents a gallon of the tax money. Do the math. Lots of money. My dad was scary. Saw him go off on people. Scare? Because he was no BS. He would do exactly what he said. No fear in him. Let's test your pledge to answer all and any question. How much are you worth and have you really quit the mob or is this just deep cover? How many leaves have you personally ended and how many have you been responsible for ending? Who was the most feared mobster of your era, and why? How do you perceive films like The Godfather, Casino, Goodfellas, etc.? Realistic to what percentage? 10%? 90%? Any opinion on the news that Pacino and De Niro are going to film The Irishman? About Frank Sheeran and Jimmy Hoffa next year? Any fact that you know that could change the entire story or anything you think must be included? Event, personality trait, etc.? Did you know either man? Thanks for doing this AMA. If you have any of those mobster dollars hidden away I could do with a 100k loan, winking face. 1. I'm out. 15 years straight proves it. At one time, I was bringing $8 minus $10 million a week into my operation. Had a jet, a helicopter, all the toys. Today, I work for a living. For myself, but I work. Movie on my life out this year. 2. Tough question. Know this. You are part of the life. You are part of the violence. 3. There was no most feared. You feared your boss if you made a mistake or violated the rules. Tough guys who have no respect for other guys in the life always end up dead. The life is a real tough guy. 4. Answered this above a few times. 5. Haven't heard about the film going forward. Pacino and De Niro are great. But Pesci is the best mobster. You would not want a loan at my former rates. LOL. I think this is a very interesting and unique topic. So thanks for doing an Ask Me Anything. What are the biggest fiscal differences between a straight business and an illegal business? Legal costs, anticipating losses due to law enforcement, money laundering, etc.? What is your relationship like now with other former members? Could you go into detail about how you would find and proposition public officials to cooperate with you? Anything from police and inspectors all the way up to higher-ranking decision-makers. Great questions that require lengthy answers. Again, read my business book. You can see it on Amazon. I answer all of that and more. Most everyone I ran with is either dead or in prison for the rest of their lives. I outlasted most all of the guys. Blessed. Guys on the street will not really associate with me now. Would not look good for them. But I really didn't have many enemies in the life. I made people earn money and that makes lots of friends. Like everything else, public officials, law enforcement, some of them like money and power. We knew how to use our influence and money to get to those who would play along. At one time, the mob controlled almost every major union in America. We had strength right into the White House back in the Kennedy days. Believe it, it's the truth. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please smash the like button and leave a comment which story you liked the most. Subscribe and hit the bell notification for updates on our latest videos. And don't forget to check the links in the description box for more awesome content.